Welcome to the Difference of 13 podcast, where we make a difference by doing it differently. Welcome back, everybody. It is week 5?
It's podcast 5.
Wow. And we apologize last week to anybody who watched the video on YouTube. If you saw, my head started getting cut off. Our camera started sliding down. And should we throw the producer under the bus? We're totally going to throw Sissy under the bus here. We're not sure what she was doing, but she was not watching the camera. And so hence why you can only see the top half of my head.
My head was still fully visible because I'm short.
It didn't quite drop 13 inches, I guess.
No, I guess not.
But who knows? Maybe my head not being in the video will make it actually get more thumbs up instead of those thumbs down.
Just might.
So this week, we're excited to have you guys back. We are talking about at Par for Success, it's Superstitions Week. We're talking a lot about some funny superstitions that are out there, and then bringing that around into some habits, which we're going to play a fun little game with that in a minute.
Hopefully it'll be fun.
We'll see how that goes. But from a kind of a wellness standpoint, I think thinking about habit change a little bit differently this week. Bad habits that you may have health-wise or other, and kind of ways that we could potentially look at improving those. And then after that, I think that's all we got today. Yeah. Should be a fun short little episode here. So superstitions, let's hear it. What's one of yours?
I really don't have any. I'm not, the number 13 doesn't freak me out. I'm okay walking under ladders. I love black cats. I'm just not very superstitious. I don't have like a lucky shirt.
I'm gonna move away from you over here.
I tempt fate all the time.
Maybe this explains all your surgeries.
It could be. Maybe I should be more superstitious. I don't know.
Maybe if you didn't walk under so many ladders, you wouldn't have as many knee surgeries.
Right.
I think my superstitions, I think I have a couple. I think one that I have since I've become more of a coach with a lot of our higher level players, I refuse to look at their scores while they're playing.
That's true.
And I get really upset if somebody tells me how somebody's scoring. And for some reason, I believe that they know that I will have looked at their score, and then therefore their score will,
be
or
affected.
Their performance will be negatively impacted.
Because somehow or another, from 1,000 miles away, they know that you're looking at their scores, and that's going to make them play less well.
More or less well. That's
more or less
English
well.
from a teacher right
It's Friday afternoon. I'm tired.
So I'm trying to think of any other ones that I have. I think in basketball, actually, when I played basketball in college, I don't think I had it in high school. I think it was more in college. I would have 2 dribbles at the foul line and then a spin before I shot it. That was my routine.
Now, was that a superstition or was that a habit?
That's a good segue. I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, so maybe it was a habit.
Just some muscle memory going on there. You got to do 2 dribbles.
Muscles don't actually have memory.
Well, it's a saying.
Well, I'm just saying we're trying to educate people.
All right. Point well taken.
We probably should try to share correct information.
See, this is why I'm not a coach. This is why I handle the bookkeeping and not the coaching.
All the operational stuff.
Yes.
So before we get into the habits, I think Sissy wanted us to play a little rapid fire game here.
Okay.
So I think we should, as a penance for her screw up on the camera, I think we should have Sissy come on over here, and we're going to ask her to go first on the rapid fire game. We did not let her know this was happening.
All right.
Come on over, Sissy. You're first. So she does exist, people.
Yes.
Come on down.
If you're not watching this on YouTube, you need to go on YouTube so you can see what she looks like. Hopefully she'll be on the camera here. We'll see.
Right.
We'll get cozy.
We're going to squeeze in.
She's going to break some blinds and do it. All right, so I got my stopwatch up here. And we're going to say you got rapid fire. You need to think
Only me? Or are we going in and around?
No, this is totally on you because
All
we don't want to do it.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. We're going to.
Well, I don't know what's going to come out, so we'll see.
That's why we don't edit it. All right, so you got 15 seconds. I'll put you on the clock here.
Okay.
And we're going to go rapid fire as many habit. Like when you hear the word habit, what do you think of? All right?
Okay.
On your mark, get set, go.
None. Black cat. Putting on one shoe first. Tying one shoe first. None hats.
Time. A lot of nuns in there. Did you go to Catholic school growing up?
I think of that the nun hat. I think it's called a habit. Is
Well,
why I was
it's their
thinking
whole
of that.
ensemble.
Right.
That is called a habit.
That's right. That's
Yes.
exactly right.
The thing around their face is called a
And
whipple.
see, I don't know what's going to come
whipple?
out.
Yes.
You never know. The what?
The whipple.
The whipple?
Yes.
That's a pretty cool one. Pretty cool. All right, so we're going to go. Terry, you're up next. Ready,
Oh.
set, go.
Wait, are we talking superstitions or habits?
Habits.
Habits. Okay, well, you took mine, which was, I swear, the first thing I thought of was none when I heard the word habit, because I did go to Catholic school. Habit. Biting your nails.
Time.
Yeah.
That's not very good.
I'm not good at rapid fire.
That's because you talked for the first 10 seconds of it.
No,
That was a good one, though.
That wasn't planned at all.
That's a bad habit.
Yeah. I don't bite my nails.
Yeah, she has nice nails all the time.
All right, that's good for everybody, right?
No.
All right,
How long do you have?
15 seconds.
Okay.
All right. 3, 2, 1.
I think more of routines. I think of a morning routine, an evening routine, a workout
Thinking
routine.
this whole time.
I think this is what I coach all my athletes on every day. I think of a scheduling habit. So do you block certain times out for certain things? Block scheduling. I think of a routine or
Time.
a habit of
Oh, yeah, you got 16 in there
Yeah.
instead of 15 because we're in
0.35.
ice.
Yeah.
Thanks. So I'm not sure. We'll have to count that later. I'm not sure who got the most in there.
Yeah.
It
But
wasn't
it
me.
definitely was not Terry.
No,
So,
that's all right.
well, thank you, Sissy, for making a guest
Thanks,
appearance here. Make sure that camera stays on. We will have more surprises planned for you.
I'm not the only one who gets tortured on this podcast.
So let's get into habits. I think
Yes.
I think we heard a few of them there, but
Good habits, bad habits.
yeah, I mean, what are some of the? Have you had any bad habits growing up that you've worked to resolve as you've gotten older?
Well, no, because I've always been perfect. No,
I guess you don't really age.
Yeah, no, I'm Benjamin Button. I'm going backwards now. Bad habit of holding my body in weird positions, which I still do that now, and you yell at me often for that. Because I'm super flexible, I can kind of put my body in weird positions, and that's not good for my joints. And I've tried to work on getting better at that.
So is there a tip in there that you can to our listeners?
Yeah, a tip would be good. Being more aware that when I catch myself, I immediately correct it and make a very focused effort to hold that corrected position longer so that my body gets used to being in the proper position instead of defaulting back to the weirdness. And I think about how when Chris is looking at me, what he's probably thinking about the way I'm standing.
So your tip is to picture somebody that you are afraid of?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Somebody that'll yell at you?
Yeah.
Okay, so habit change out of fear. Okay.
Right. Negative reinforcement is what works for me, or the absence of positive reinforcement.
You are different.
Yeah, that's me.
That's why we have you on the podcast. So I think when we think of habit change, I think it's incremental is definitely one piece that's very important. One of the services that we work with a lot of our clients, we go through Precision Nutrition, which is a habit-based nutritional platform, and they're very big on talking about I think setting goals. I think SMART goals is a very common acronym. We actually had a debate about this the other day of what the A stood for, I think. So for those of you who don't know, SMART goals they need to be specific, meaning if you wanted to, you can't just say I want to do more push-ups, you'd say I want to do 10 push-ups. They need to be measurable, so by putting a number or a time or something measurable on it. They need to be agreeable, I think is what we agreed upon.
Yeah, though some people say attainable.
And that, if you're in a group setting, I think that's more.
Yeah, I think for a group setting, agreeable makes more sense. Like everybody in the group needs to be on board. But I think for an individual, attainable makes more sense because you agree with yourself. That's why you're setting the goal. But it needs to be something that you can reasonably attain. For me to say I want to be able to slam dunk a basketball at a regulation height is kind of ridiculous because
Unless we get you a trampoline.
or a jetpack or something. But other than that,
And
it's
we'd probably
probably
be looking
not.
at surgeries 13 through
Yeah,
15.
yeah. So so make it attainable. Make it something that you can conceivably do.
What was R?
R
Put
was
you on the spot.
I don't remember what was R.
reasonable.
Reasonable. Okay. That kind
I
of goes.
blinked for a minute. I was
Yeah.
trying to put it on you.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think that goes along the times. I think some people say agreeable will sometimes be attainable. I think are reasonable or reachable. I think along the lines of 4'11" woman probably isn't going to be dunking the golf ball or the golf ball.
Yeah.
Can you tell an industry working? The basketball. I mean, 4'11" person and anyone really is going to be very challenging unless they have a trampoline.
Yeah.
And then T is. You really weren't paying attention.
No, I was
yesterday,
not.
Timetable. So we need
Yes,
to have a specific timetable. So I think specific, measurable, agreeable, reasonable, and timetable. So if an example of a SMART goal would be, I'm going to do 10 push-ups, or we all are going to do 10 wall push-ups.
Yeah.
And that would be agreeable and reasonable. And by the end of 2 weeks. That would be kind of a SMART goal, as they say. So I think when we're looking at creating new habits, I think having that ability or that understanding that we need to put it in that sort of a framework, that small changes that are reasonable. If we want to lose 50 pounds, that we need to change these certain parts of our eating, our dietary. Where do we eat? Where do we sit when we eat? How big of a spoon or a fork do we use? Do we take breaks between bites? All those sorts of little habits that you can kind of get a lot of little wins that eventually add up to a big win. So I think anything in life where you're looking to improve, whether it's routines or habits, or usually you're not looking to improve a habit, you're looking to improve an outcome. But if there's something we want to improve, that we look at the little pieces that would lead up to that.
And making those small adjustments can lead to really big changes. I think if you try to dive in and go, I'm never going to have sugar again for the rest of my life, well, that's ambitious and probably not real attainable for most people. But if you say, I'm going to cut out sodas, I'll start there. I just won't drink soda anymore. That's a good step in the right direction. Over the next 2 weeks, I am not going to have any sodas or cookies. I think that's gets you, because then you start replacing the sodas with things that are healthier and moves you in the right direction.
Yeah. And I think you can even go a step below that and say you normally have 10 sodas in a week. Okay, next week I'm going to have 8 sodas. Next week after that I'm going to have 5, and then kind of work your way down to it. So instead of going cold turkey, which sometimes is challenging for people. Right. You could even do that, but I think that's a great point. So I think that leads into what we wanted to kind of talk about from a business or a culture standpoint, and this is like changing the habits of how we communicate. Right. Not having that. I think superstitions are about kind of believing things without really having any basis to them sometimes, and I think we look about communication and how people in the workplace might be thinking or acting to something without ever really asking. That can cause a lot of problems. Right,
because most of the time in the workplace, you don't get to pick who you work with. So you can be thrown into situations where you're working with people who have an entirely different communication style than you do, and you have to figure out how to work through that.
Do you have any examples of that? I'm sure you have a few.
Oh, a few. Because when you're old like I am, you've worked with a lot of different people.
You're just wise and experienced.
Yeah. Been around the block. I worked in a company where everybody was pretty much half my age, and very. I tend to be very analytical, very focused on getting the job done. Emotions are not high on my priority list, and I was working with some very young, very artistic, very emotionally driven people. And that was very challenging because I would go into a meeting and I would say, okay, we have these 5 tasks we need to get done. How are we going to get it done? Let's go. And I would start assigning tasks to everyone. And the other people wanted to talk about how they felt about the project and how they felt about the different roles they might play and who had the role last time. There was a lot of talk about emotions, and that was frustrating for me because I just wanted to get things done.
So how did you handle it?
I had to take a lot of deep breaths, and I had to remember that they weren't wasting time. This was how their thought process worked. And if I wanted to get those things accomplished, instead of fighting against them and trying to, steamroll my way through it, I had to learn how to play into their communication style, that they needed to talk about this emotional side of it and allow time for that.
Yeah, that's so much harder to do than it sounds. I think because that's one of the things that we've tried to do here is in our workplace, everybody we bring in, we do a workplace style assessment, which allows us to kind of identify how people communicate, how they react under stress. It sounds like those people you're describing are a little bit more expressive in terms of their emotions and whatnot. And we all know, at least all of us here know that you are not that.
No.
So yeah, I mean, I think understanding where somebody's at and trying to meet them in the middle, that somebody who does not want to talk about emotions, just wants to get things done, probably needs to be a little bit more in tune with the people who are more emotional. And the people who are more emotional need to maybe think about dialing that back a little bit and focus more on the tasks that need to get done, to find a middle ground where both people can feel respected and heard, and both feel like they've gotten something out of that.
Well, and I think just having the conversation of, like, when somebody new comes on board and we do this work style communication assessment, having that conversation of, well, you're more expressive than I am, so in a crisis situation, you might need to talk about how you're feeling about the crisis, where I don't. In a crisis situation, I get quiet. I get inward of focusing on what can I do to make this better. I'm not being aloof. I'm not being snobby. That's just the way, and understanding that we handle things differently, and that's okay. And having that conversation ahead of time, I think, just opens the door to understanding that we're different, and that's okay.
I think especially like for managers, I mean, that has been the biggest challenge for me, is going from an employee to an employer, has been understanding that I have to actually understand how my staff and my team communicates and how they work. And that if there is a crisis situation, I need to be on the lookout for somebody who normally would be responding by running around like their hair's on fire, and they're totally quieted in a corner, like there's something wrong there.
Yeah.
But if that's you, I know you're probably just getting stuff done. I'm still going to ask you how you're doing, and you're going to tell me fine and go away. But yeah, I think
it's the intonation of fine that just defines how I'm doing.
It really depends on how cutting the eye layer is.
Right.
But yeah, I think if you work on a team, if you are an employer, and if you're an employee, I think understanding and kind of being on the lookout of how people react to things and handle certain situations is huge. And I think when you bring up in those situations when there's conflict or when there's a disagreement, those are opportunities to approach those with curiosity and say, well, why are we not getting along? Why are we having different thoughts on this? And very often, I think when we look at our work style assessment, somebody who is a bit more in tune with emotions is going to get in a conflict with somebody who's not as in tune with emotions. And particularly when one of those people is much more aggressive and one is much less aggressive. They're not going to jive too well in a team typically. And so I think those are the big gaps that you want to fill by really having that conversation and initiating that before there is a stressful point. So that when that does arrive, and it always does, especially in any business, but especially small business, when everybody's kind of responsible for everything to a degree, then we all know how to handle each other and what to be on the lookout for.
Yeah, because it's cozy in here. I mean, we're sitting a little bit closer than usual because of the camera, but it's not a huge office. It's an open environment, so if somebody's having a bad day, it affects everyone. And kind of understanding those cues of, hey, she's having or he's having a bad day. How do we help them through this? How do we not take it personally? That, if I get quiet and you come in and you want to be chatty with me, but I'm really quiet because I'm dealing with some sort of crisis.
Like a crappy doctor.
Right. Or, we had a problem with a client or whatever, and I'm trying to manage that. My lack of communicating with you is not that I don't want to talk to you, that I'm not being insulting. It's just I'm really focused on this.
Yeah. So I think that's a huge one. I think the other one that, the last one kind of today that I want to talk about is the communication rules that we've established here. I think those are an interesting thing to think about in a work environment, and I think in a family environment, with your spouse and your kids. I think, really thinking about how are you best communicated with,
Right.
And understanding how those other people who are important in that situation, whether it's home life or work life, how are they best communicated with? Because when we can do that, we set ourselves up for a much more successful and I guess symbiotic, if that's the right word, symbiotic relationship where we can both thrive.
Right.
So, I know for me personally, when I'm in a stressful situation, I respond similar to you. I'm kind of I may be here at my computer typing, and if people watching right now, if you're my employee and I'm here, I'm going to probably, at least historically, I'd be here typing. Yep. Okay. So for those of you listening to the podcast, I'm basically at my computer. My computer's wide open. I'm still typing, and I'm maybe glancing up and down at the person talking to me. That can be taken as very disrespectful that I'm not giving them my full attention. But the way that I handle stress, to me, I hear what they're saying. I probably already know what I'm going to tell them to do within 5 seconds of them talking. I need to be aware that that's how I react. And I made everybody here aware of that at Par for Success, that, hey, when I'm stressed and you want to come talk to me, if I tell you yes, my communication rule is I need to close my computer screen so that I'm not tempted at all to type on it and that I'm giving you my full attention. So if I'm looking at you as I'm speaking, you know that I'm engaged. And I think until we started doing those workplace, those style assessments, I just kind of did that, and that's just what I did. And if you didn't like it, sorry. I was just totally ignorant to the fact of that may make somebody feel uncomfortable or unheard.
Right, and I have this. I guess again, I'm old. I don't remember things that well. No, it's always been. I need to write things down. I need to have things written down. So if you tell it to me, I probably won't remember it. But if you send me a text or an email, then I have something tangible to go back to. So that's a communication rule I've set up, that don't just tell me, oh, so-and-so wants to renew their membership. Send me, just a 2-word email, Fred wants to renew. Okay, got it. And that way I'll make sure it gets done.
I think that's why we have a communication board here. Some people like to be communicated, but that way I'm all about Post-its.
Sticky notes. So many sticky notes.
And emails for me. I'm the same way as you. If somebody says something to me in passing, I'm very clear when we bring a new staff member on, is just don't, you can tell me, that's great, like, let's have that conversation, but I'm not going to promise you that I'm going to remember that 10 minutes later.
Yeah.
Send me a follow-up email, and I try to, when we have those conversations, remind the person, hey, send me an email or go put a note on my desk if I'm in the middle of two clients. But I think being aware of yourself really opens up the door for other people to better understand you. And then as you better understand yourself, you also start to think about, well, how can I understand others?
It's a sign of respect of what is going to make this other person's life easier. And you can take that home. I remember when my boys were little and they were in school, they'd come home from school, and of course I wanted to know, how was your day? And I quickly learned that they did not really want to talk about it right when they got home. Not that it was anything bad, even if it was a good day, they just needed a little time to decompress. So they'd come in, they might get a snack or something, and I'd let them just be for, 20 minutes or whatever. And then we would get around to, well, what happened at school today? What's going on? But I knew in those first 20 minutes they were tired and done communicating for a little while, and they just needed some downtime. And I'm kind of like that too. When I get home from work, I don't want anybody to say, how was your day? Because the response you're going to get is, it was fine. I'm not ready to talk yet. I need time to get it together.
Yeah, I just think knowing yourself is the first step to being able to operate, better in a team environment, and then it really, I think, opens up the door to understand others just so much better. So I think that's, on the theme of doing things differently, we do it very, very differently here. We actually just had our lunch for Alex, who started, and Sissy, it was her late, just starting lunch.
Just a few weeks late.
A few months late. But when we were talking about, asked how are you enjoying the, working here? What's different? What's, what do you like? And I think that was a resounding theme, was just how different it is compared to other places that people have worked. And, I like to think that that's the culture that we've really worked very hard and intently on creating, is this open communication. We want to know how everybody wants to communicate. We totally understand and accept and expect people to communicate differently. And then that opens up the door for when people have issues that up and down the chain, people are keeping each other accountable. There's this communication flow that really happens much more smoothly.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody feels pretty comfortable talking with each other. You know, we've established that it's okay to say things, and it's an accepting environment. So if something does come up, you feel comfortable having that confrontation without it being a huge confrontation.
Right. So I think that's probably good for today. I think
so.
But I want to thank everybody for listening. And as always, you can follow us Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Pinterest. It's all at Par for Success. You can follow our website, parforsuccess.com. And thanks for listening. And we will see you guys on the flip side.
Have a great week.